You know those North Koreans who fled the country and go on to create books and hold interviews and TED conferences about their life in the biggest prison in the world? Yeah, I get that it's sad they've had to endure that type of pain and suffering to the point of risking it all for a better life, but I'll tell you one thing, none of those escapees have fled the country in a Soviet fighter jet, except these guys, but I'm only gonna talk about this fella. Kenneth H. Rowe, a very American name for a very Korean person. His name before was this. Now I know most of us are young and immature, but please, have some respect for the man. He accomplished more than what any of us have. The story of Kum-Sok begins in Japanese-controlled Korea. He was born in 1932. While in school he had to adopt a Japanese name, since Japan was going the extra mile into assimilating all Koreans to become like the Japanese. Skip forward a little and the end of World War II is coming, and Sok tells his father that he wishes to become a kamikaze pilot, which his father was incredibly against, which for one, is literal suicide, and that Sok is 12 at the point in time. His nationalistic pro-Japan views dwindled down after he realized Japan winning the war was impossible, and became pro-American, with a bit of involvement of his father telling him about the good life in the US. With Sok's newly found love for the US, and realizing living under a regime that is trying to eradicate your culture and heritage actually kind of sucks, he couldn't be blabbermouthing it off to anyone, otherwise he'd be asking for a fusillade surprise, or to be left outside in cold weather, so he had to keep it on the down low, so he didn't get ousted for not being anti-American. Moving on, now that World War II is over, another war was just getting started, thanks to the Soviets and Americans splitting Korea into two and occupying both sides respectively, and knowingly unknowingly enforcing their ideologies in the occupation areas. With the signs becoming clear that the North would be heading to communism, Sok had to once again hide his true feeling for the US, but this time, he doubled down and played out a facade of lies and deceit. He would become the biggest fan of communism in Korea, showing unwavering enthusiasm and determination to the communist regime, and even call out others who didn't seem too communist enough. During the Korean War, Sok applied to join the Korean People's Navy first, and then transferred over to the Air Force. He was sent to Manchuria in China to get trained up by the Soviets to become a fighter pilot in the Soviets' brand spanking new MiG-15 fighter jets. This will be important later on. Over 100 combat missions in the war and one ceasefire agreement later, Sok had came to the point where he was ready to defect, and on the 21st of September 1953, during a training mission, he flew his MiG from the outskirts of Pyongyang to the Kimpo Air Base in Seoul, pushing the jet to its limits and flying over 23,000 feet at over 600 miles per hour across the demilitarized zone. He was a very lucky man to make it to the air base, for two reasons. The first being that no other North Koreans were chasing him down, the second reason was that he wasn't spotted by American radar systems at the air base. Just by sheer luck and coincidence, the radar system were down for routinely maintenance. He landed at the air base the wrong way on the runway, and almost collided with an American pilot who was landing the other way. Apparently, Sok and his MiG was only made aware to the Americans after the pilot who nearly collided with him exclaimed it over the radio in the cockpit.
Man, I'm so glad that ceasefire's still holding up. I can't wait to get home.
Same, better hope no missiles come raining down on us.
It's a goddamn MiG.
What?
An MiG. Get to the runway, fast.
The air base quickly scrambled around the fighter jet and Sok. At first the Americans believed the air base was under attack, until Sok jumped out of the jet and surrendered, tearing up a picture of Kim Il-sung in the cockpit. He was escorted to a jeep, which took him into custody, where he was told further about a special reward, a reward that involved a lot of moolah. Operation Moolah. Quick summary about it. The US Air Force wanted a pilot with a Soviet MiG-15 to defect to South Korea for a handsomely paid reward. When Sok was told about it, he responded that he had no clue about there being a reward, or a plan to get communists to defect for that matter. The US tried to spread the word of the offer with leaflets dropped over Manchuria and North Korea, around the Yalu River, and even tried radioing the offer from Japan and South Korea into China and North Korea. Sok explained to the interrogators that the plan didn't and wouldn't work, because the North Koreans were forbidden to listen to South Korean radio. The leaflets that were dropped over the Yalu didn't reach the MiG pilots since they were stationed elsewhere in Manchuria, and even if anyone found out about it, they wouldn't believe it to be true, and if it was, they wouldn't know the true value to the US dollar. He even suggested to them that if they rewarded defectors with a guaranteed job and permanent residence in America, then it would have tempted them. Sok had received the money reluctantly, as Eisenhower didn't believe it was right to reward defectors, especially because he felt it would destabilize the ceasefire agreement. But Sok still got the money regardless. His fighter jet got sent to Okinawa where it was used in flight testing. There was an attempt to send it back to North Korea, but got no response, so instead it got put into the Air Force Museum down in Ohio. He emigrated over to the US in 1954, became a US citizen, and he finally began to find a sense of peace with his new life as an American. He used his reward money to help him graduate at the University of Delaware in mechanical and electrical engineering, met Vice President Nixon, changed his name to Kenneth Rowe, probably after finding out what his name meant in the anglicized part of the world. He reunited with his mother in 1957. Unfortunately, his father was long gone before he first defected, but his mother got evacuated by the Americans during the war. Some more bits and bobs happened in his life. He worked for some major companies, met the love of his life and started a family, wrote a book about his defection and life in North Korea, and a biography. While the ending seems happy, I have to kill the mood. Sok lived to be 90 years old, before passing away only recently, on Boxing Day last year. Nonetheless, he was a legend among the vast amount of North Korean defectors, and that brings the end to the video. I didn't realize it would be this long, but thanks for staying up to now, and thanks for watching.